Welcome to Time Well Spent, a podcast from LaborSync, the only real-time, multilingual timesheet software your business will ever need. So imagine checking your company's bank account and realizing you just paid for 12 and a half hours of labor that never actually happened.
Yeah, that is a total nightmare.
Right, and the worst part is nobody even lied to you. Today on Time Well Spent, we are looking at some really fascinating insights from a LaborSync blog article to figure out why fast-growing companies silently bleed money. Our goal is to help you spot these, slow leaps before they sink your business.
Well, that silent bleed is exactly what gets most businesses. I mean, it is rarely a massive front-page disaster that takes down a growing company.
It's usually the tiny things, right?
Exactly. It's the invisible inefficiencies. The article actually uses this great boat analogy. So a ship might look totally flawless from the shore, but underneath it's taking on water and sitting dangerously low.
Oh, yeah. It's like a slow tire leak. You are cruising down the highway feeling completely fine until suddenly, boom, you are driving on the rim. But how does that slow leak translate to a business losing all those hours without even noticing?
So it really comes down to what the blog article calls the scaling multiplier.
Yeah.
Let's say you have just two employees, right?
Hmm.
And they both round their 4:45 p.m. finish time up to 5:00 p.m.
Okay, so that's like 30 minutes a day, barely a rounding error.
Right, you barely notice it. But when your company hits 50 employees and they all have that exact same habit,
Oh, wow, that scales fast.
yeah, you're now hemorrhaging 12 and a half hours of paid, unworked labor every single day.
Every single day. That is wild.
Yeah, growth doesn't fix a messy process, it actually just compounds it.
Man, if a 15-minute rounding error costs you over 12 hours a day, it really makes you wonder where else time is silently disappearing. Well, wait, I have to ask. Are we talking about employees actively trying to milk the clock here? Like, is this malicious?
No, not at all, and that is a huge misconception. It is purely human memory. It's what the article calls the manual timesheet trap.
The manual timesheet trap.
Yeah, because when workers are forced to guesstimate what they did on Tuesday morning while filling out a paper timesheet on, like, Friday afternoon, they naturally just write down 8 to 4.
Right, they just put down the expected shift.
Exactly. They aren't going to write 8.12 to 3.54 because recalling that level of precision days later is just exhausting.
It's the path of least resistance, but since that timesheet isn't handed in until the end of the week, or I don't know, maybe the following Monday, management is completely blind to what's actually happening in real time.
Which unleashes the second leak, the overtime ghost. Because you cannot prevent overtime if you only see it days after it happened.
That makes perfect sense. By the time you review last Thursday's timesheet on Monday morning, the damage is already done.
Exactly. Those extra hours are logged in and the money is gone.
And I guess if you don't actually know when people are working, you definitely don't know what they are working on.
Right. Which leads to leak number 3, inaccurate job costing.
So if I'm a business owner, I'm trying to figure out if the framing phase of a project was profitable, but my data is basically just a collective best guess from Friday.
Yeah, and that inaccurate job costing is incredibly dangerous.
Mm.
You might think a project was highly profitable, so you bid the exact same way on the next job.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. But in reality, your demolition phase was bleeding cash and dragging your overall margins down. So you end up bidding on future work that you are mathematically guaranteed to lose money on.
Wow, you are just flying completely blind. And as a crew gets bigger, the logistics of managing those people must turn into a total nightmare. You can't exactly just shout across the shop to reassign someone when they finish a task.
Exactly. And that bottleneck is leak number 4, the communication black hole.
A communication black hole.
Yeah, employees finish a task and end up sitting in their trucks waiting for instructions. Or maybe they are standing around at a locked gate. You're paying for expensive windshield time simply because the flow of information isn't keeping up with the physical workflow.
So telling people to, try harder or be more precise on Fridays obviously isn't going to fix human memory or logistical bottlenecks.
No, definitely not.
It sounds like the only way out is removing the memory element entirely, like tracking things in the moment so the infrastructure does the heavy lifting. How do we actually fix this?
Well, the fix is automating the data collection. First, you replace the paper with GPS verification.
Okay, so you know your team is actually on site when they clock in.
Right, completely eliminating that memory gap. Then, use real-time dashboards so you can monitor hours proactively. That way you catch that overtime on Wednesday before it happens on Thursday.
That is huge. And for the job costing, I mean, if an employee can just click a button on their phone to switch from demo to framing, you instantly have real data for your future bids. You essentially make the right way the easy way.
Exactly. When you have the right systems, accurate job costing becomes automatic, rather than a Friday afternoon guessing game.
Which is critical, right?
It really is, because
Yeah.
ultimately, growth is a stress test. It finds the absolute weakest manual links in your business and pulls on them until they snap.
So if your company doubled in size tomorrow, your current systems would likely shatter. But here is something else to chew on before we go.
What's that?
If these tiny 15-minute leaks are draining this much cash from payroll, how much mental bandwidth are they stealing from your best managers who have to constantly chase down these errors? You might not just be losing money, you might be burning out the very leaders you need to drive that growth.
That is a really sobering point to end on.
This episode of Time Well Spent was brought to you by LaborSync. Track employee hours and job site locations in real time from any device. Start your risk-free trial today at laborsync.com.